This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. Hey team, we have a new sponsor here at the Crypto Conversation, BitGet, one of the world's leading copy trading cryptocurrency exchanges. Yes, indeed. What happens if you've got the funds to invest, but you don't have the time to keep track of the market? You still want to make smart money moves. What do you do? Well, copy trading is a popular choice for beginner traders. You can shorten your learning curve by uncovering tips and strategies from more experienced traders. BitGet's copy trading platform has over 80,000 elite traders to choose from and 380,000 followers just like yourself who are already using the BitGet copy trading platform as a potential passive income stream. All it takes is one click. You can subscribe to an elite, profitable strategist, set your limits, automate your orders, and monitor their trades. I've got some links in the show notes below. One link will take you through to the BitGet sign-up page, give you a VIP discount. So learn all about it for yourself thanks to BitGet. And now it is on with the show. My guest today is Andrew Smith. Andrew is the founder of Versatus Labs, building out the most versatile DevEx in Web3. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
It is a pleasure. Let's do what we do at the beginning of the show. Andrew, it'd be great if you could please introduce yourself. I'd love to hear a little bit about your, personal and professional backstory, what you've been doing that has led you to founding Versatus Labs.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Miami, Florida, which is where I now reside again. I did do a stint in Denver, Colorado, and an extended stint in Los Angeles. So I was gone from my hometown for about 12 years. Started programming at the age of 14. Technology teacher in 7th grade handed me the classic, the C programming language book and said, learn this. I think it's going to be important. And so I did. Never really did much as a kid other than you build Space Invader clones in C and a couple of other things. Picked up Python and C++ a little bit later in life during high school, and was very, very interested in the cross section of machine learning and AI and economics. Economics is really sort of my first love. Even though I'm a programmer, I kind of always wanted to be an economist, but just found that there's not really a lot of money in it unless you work for a political campaign. So wasn't going to do that. And programming and machine learning in particular was something that I thought I could apply my love and knowledge of economics to. So I was building machine learning algorithms very, very early on before you had any of the sort of open source tools that you have today that makes it easy. And was sending my resume and GitHub around to a bunch of different hedge funds. So this was, going back about 10, 11 years now. And finally found one that was willing to give me a little bit of money to play around with. It's a group called Trident Asset Management. They're based part-time out of Connecticut and part-time out of Colorado. Wasn't going to move to Connecticut, so that's what took me to Denver. Then did the same thing for a fixed income shop based out of Newport Beach. That's how I ended up in Los Angeles. Started my first startup there. It's called Owl ESG. It's an environmental, social, and governance data company. Built out some machine learning models and in particular a BERT model that extracted data from PDFs. So we're scraping about 30,000 documents a day and extracting the data and building out an ESG data set. Grew that company, and then in 2020 decided to start Versatus. So started as sort of a hobby project, was doing a solo build on it, spent about 18 months solo building, and was talking to a few friends in the space, and they thought I was really onto something. So made some introductions. Next thing you knew, we were raising our first round from Jump and Big Brain, hiring out an engineering team, and now 14 months later, here we are.
Very nice. Very nice. Thank you, Andrew. Give us an idea then of, your vision for Versatus. What are you guys building? What's the vision?
Yeah, so the vision is like the best way to put it, even though this is an imperfect analogy, is if you think of like the cloud compute providers, AWS, Google Cloud, Azure, et cetera, they own these huge data centers. And these data centers are effectively a commodity business. They build out a warehouse and put a bunch of servers in it, connect those servers to the internet, occasionally maintain them and update them. In and of themselves, they're not really that valuable. What makes them really valuable is that they provide all these tools that make it easy and efficient for developers to interact with those data centers and build applications on top of them, to store data inside of them, et cetera. We believe that blockchain is an analogous to that. It's not, again, it's an imperfect analogy, but if you kind of view the blockchains that exist in the world today and the ones that will come in the future as those data centers, next generation data centers, where we provide value is we provide that programmability layer and compute layer that makes it easy and efficient for developers to build on top of blockchains. What we're building is a decentralized compute stack that enables developers to build in any language on any chain. And I think this is really powerful for a number of different reasons, which I'm sure we'll get to. But one of the major barriers to entry for developers is the language barrier. There's also a pretty big tooling barrier as well, which we solve. But the language barrier, if you want to build in Web3, the first thing you need to do is either go learn Solidity or Rust or one of the other languages. And Rust is a general purpose language, so there are some people that already know it. But anybody that's entering into Web3 at the very beginning, and they've got to go learn Solidity, right? So a lot of them just don't view it as worthwhile to go learn Solidity. It's a domain-specific language. The only thing you'll ever be able to do with it is build EVM-compatible smart contracts. So until and unless there's a robust enough financial incentive for them to actually go and learn Solidity, they're probably not going to. But what we found from doing some pretty significant market research is if they could just use their existing languages and existing tools, they'd be happy to hobby hack and maybe even look for a job or start their own project and build on top of blockchains. So we want to make that process easier. We want to reduce the barrier to entry for developers. We believe that developers precede users, that you need developers to build applications that users actually want to use if we're ever going to see mass adoption for Web3.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point, Andrew, and I've seen you guys talk about this in some of your comms, I guess, because that's kind of it is flipping the script, right? Because everyone thinks, yeah, okay, it's the transition to Web3 easy as just got to build some user friendly apps, and if you build it, they will come. But of course, real life has not been that simple. So your philosophy is essentially the reverse of that. So you want to attract as many developers as possible. So just talk us through that again. I mean, you have a little bit, but just explain why you think that is really the key to the paradigm shift for Web2 to Web3.
Yeah, absolutely. I think like a just kind of telling the story of some case studies probably helps here, right? So you never know where a killer app is going to come from. Facebook started as a dating app for Ivy Leaguers, right? And it's Harvard and Yale dating app. Slack started as a video game studio, and Slack was their internal messaging network. And now that is the product. Killer applications oftentimes come from experimentation. And the more experiments you have going on, the higher the probability that you're going to find stuff that people actually want to interact with and use. There are some precursors to what makes a killer app, things that make people's lives more convenient, that's just undeniably is going to make their life better, makes their work more productive. These are usually more business applications, makes their world more connected. These are your social media type of applications, or makes their life more affordable. So things that create efficiencies that reduce the cost of things that they were already doing. Look, if I knew what that killer app was going to be, I'd probably go build that. It probably would be easier. But where I think killer apps come from is lots of developers trying lots of things and competing for the limited funding and resources out there. And then you have, unfortunately, you do have gatekeepers in the world that, you have VCs and you have investors and angel investors. So typically, yeah, there's going to be some stuff that's lost in the process of gathering funding and everything else that might have been really cool. But really, like if you have lots of things competing, probably the cream rises to the top, and you're going to get well-funded, really interesting application ideas that can then promote themselves and attract users. The users are going to come for the applications. Right now, we have sort of the most users we'll ever have if this is all we ever have to offer, which is effectively gambling and speculation. I think we've captured the gambling market pretty well. The speculator market we've captured pretty well. They're here to make money off of token price fluctuations. If we want people that are here for the long term to use applications, well, we need to offer the applications that they want to use. And I think where that comes from, it's largely a numbers game. It's Pareto principle. 10%, 20% of the developers are going to create the applications that get 80%, 90% of the users. So if we want to have a bigger, 20% of applications that get lots of users, we need a bigger 100%. We need a bigger pie in general. And the only way to get a bigger pie is to reduce the cost, both time and money cost of building in Web3. And that's what we're attempting to do, particularly on the time cost of things. Reduce the opportunity cost of learning how to build in Web3 by making it easier for them to build in Web3. So that's really sort of how we think about this. We think that developers necessarily are a precursor to users. If you look at like some of the market research we've done, it's kind of an either or. Like if there were more users, developers would take the time to learn this stuff. But the problem is that there's not going to be more users until developers learn how to build this stuff. So that's kind of where we see ourselves. We believe we can be the catalyst for a Cambrian explosion of Web3 developers coming from all different walks of life. Bring in product managers that can understand how to manage a project that's being built in Python or Go or C++, but may not understand how to manage a project that's being built in Solidity. Bring in entrepreneurs that they come into this space and they look at, okay, well, how do I build a team out to build this? And what they see is extremely high cost of talent acquisition because there just isn't that big of a pool of Solidity developers. So make the talent pools that they can hire from significantly bigger, reduce that cost. Now you get some of those non-technical entrepreneurs looking at Web3 as a way to build their application. That's kind of the way we look at it. Just make the process easier, reduce those barriers. You'll get that first wave who's like chomping at the bit to come into Web3. And then they'll build some apps. You'll get more users. You'll then get the next wave of developers who see that there's financial incentives to doing so. It's going to be a process. It's going to take time. But we believe within the next 7 to 10 years, if you offer up the correct tools and stacks, that about a third of all applications will be built on decentralized stacks for a number of different reasons, which we could talk to if you'd like. But that's where we see our value proposition is we make it easier for them. They come in, they build, then you get the users, then more come in and build, and so forth and so on. You create a flywheel effect.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, Andrew. And look, we don't need to get too deep into the weeds, but just talking about that decentralized stack, I suppose that you guys are building at Versatus. You have your own layer 1 blockchain, right? And there's the consensus mechanism, I believe, is proof of claim. So maybe just give us the kind of the 2-minute overview of your stack, I suppose.
Yeah, so our L1 is primarily used for content addressing programs that are deployed to our network. So this is a way that our compute nodes can verify that they're executing the correct programs, and such that watcher nodes and validators can also, ensure that those compute nodes are not acting maliciously, that they're executing the correct programs. Our consensus mechanism, so proof of claim is actually our election mechanism. So this is how we elect nodes to quorums. Our consensus mechanism, we call it farmer harvester. Basically, it's a modification of what many distributed systems engineers would know as the worker collector model, but to fit a Byzantine fault tolerant model. So, in your worker collector model, you basically have worker nodes that are individual nodes that they're allocated compute tasks. They execute those compute tasks and return the results to a collector node, which collects them and does batch updates into a database or to wherever they're storing state. In our model, you don't want to have single nodes doing this work, because then if a single node is malicious, they can actually have state altering transactions that are incorrect. So we form quorums as opposed to having single nodes. And then 60% of that quorum needs to what we call redundantly execute the program. So redundantly execute the program, return results, agree on results, and then send votes to what we call the harvester quorum. So again, instead of having a single collector, we have a quorum of collectors that they then need to agree on the threshold of votes being reached before they would commit that to a block. So that's sort of very high level overview of how our architecture works. Sure. Now, again, like our goal is to enable language agnosticism on top of every chain. So not just for our L1, but on top of Ethereum, on top of other chains as well. And the primary reason for having our own L1 is it's a place where we can efficiently prove that compute nodes in our network are using the correct program, they're executing the correct program. And it's also a place where we can accrue value to those compute nodes. So whether they're being paid by another network's native token or they're being paid for executing compute on our network, we can emit our native tokens to them as an incentive for them to run a node as the network gets bootstrapped. And that way they're earning some money off of it. And then also it's a place where we can accrue fees back to our own L1 so that those compute nodes have a place where they're getting paid.
Got it. Thank you, Andrew. If we kind of zoom out then to some more kind of, I guess, just the general state of where we are in the slow transition from Web 2 to Web 3, you know, in the kind of early days of blockchain, I suppose, you saw a lot of the big brands, big financial institutions start to experiment with blockchain, but they were kind of like, they weren't really interested in building on Bitcoin or Ethereum. You know, they went down the route of building their own private blockchains, which was a little bit pointless, perhaps, in hindsight. And now we're seeing, you know, with so many different chains around now and much more interoperability, you know, brands and institutions are recognizing that it's to their benefit and everyone to build on the decentralized stacks that you're talking about, right? So maybe just you look at, I'd love you to paint a picture of, I suppose, you know, your ideas of where we are now and your vision for what the next steps are, just over, I guess, the next wave of adoption, maybe what's going to ignite the next hype cycle. How do you think about this?
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. I try to steer away from predictions as much as possible.
Yeah.
If I were a better investor, I probably would just be investing and making money that way. I do think the key, going back to, and I hate to just sort of beat a dead horse, but the key is going to be getting more developers in, and whether those are enterprise developers, which I think, you know, what we're building provides a lot of value to enterprises. Again, they don't need to go out and hire a bunch of Solidity developers that have 4, 5, 6 years experience. They can hire much more experienced developers or use the existing developers they have on staff. That to me is the key. I think we need more people trying things, pushing the limits of what's possible on top of this technology in order for us to find the use cases that are going to lead to mass adoption. I also think that enterprises, there are potentially some use cases for enterprise blockchains, but for the most part, I think one of the things that steered enterprises away from using public blockchains were privacy concerns. So right now, if you're to deploy, you know, if you're to have a corporate wallet on top of Ethereum, like everybody knows how much money you have in that. So I think that level of transparency is something that scares a lot of enterprises. And the closer we move towards being able to have on-chain privacy, so provability, but without revealing the underlying values, the more you'll see enterprises adopt public blockchains as a development environment, as a place to build and deploy applications to, both internal applications as well as consumer-facing or other business-facing applications. But I think you got to solve that privacy issue. Transparency is good when needed. It's also something that can be a deterrent to particularly large publicly traded companies, you know, who have to report to the SEC, who get audited, all these other things. They don't want they don't want all of this information, their financial information, public. So finding ways to create some privacy around that, I think, will probably help with enterprise adoption.
Yeah, yeah, makes perfect sense, Andrew. What about, how does AI fit into this? I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but I've seen, you guys talk a little bit about AI. I think you've probably got some opinions. So, yeah, I mean, anything you want to kind of speculate on in terms of the I guess the intersection of AI and Web3 in the future?
So in one word, trust. I think that's the key, is that we're able to offer trust is very, very expensive. And I'm not talking about just necessarily blockchain trust, but trust in general. It's very expensive, and it's at the core of how and why society works. If you don't have trust, society breaks down. So we have to trust each other, right? That we have our individual best interests in mind. And as a result of us trusting that we each want to do what's best for ourselves, we know that we're not going to put ourselves in a situation to damage each other, because that might hurt ourselves. So having trust in AI models is going to be really, really important. And right now, that mechanism works because OpenAI runs it, and OpenAI is a big company, and they have profit motives, and but it's all centralized. As we move to a world where there's decentralized AI models, there needs to be some way to trust that that AI model is not malicious. And I think blockchain can be a huge component of that, and tokenization, staking, and being able to lend trust to compute models is a really important component of it. I think that it's an area where we fit in really, really well in particular. So that to me is the most obvious intersection of AI and blockchain. Particularly when it comes to things like deep fakes. I think you want to be able to have some verifiability behind images. You want to have some verifiability behind videos. You can just imagine a scenario where somebody creates a deep fake, and there's no way to prove that this came from an AI model, and all of a sudden chaos ensues in a city or in a region or in a country because of some deep fake that people think is real. So there are a lot of concerns around, kind of like fake news use cases for AI, and how do we solve for that problem? How do we put a marker on that, on that image or on that video that proves that this came from either a trusted source or this came from, a model, and having some sort of like watermark of trust. I think that crypto can provide that in some ways. So that's one area. I also think there's a lot of concern about like existential threats related to AI, and decentralizing AI models and getting them out of the hands of individuals and into the hands of communities, open sourcing them, and then providing incentives around building these models in a way to where they won't create existential threats. I don't think we're quite there yet. I'm less of an AI doomer than a lot of people, but to the AI doomers, I would say use crypto as a way to provide some of these guarantees that your model is not going to go off the rails. And then lastly, there's going to need to be a way for models to financially interact with other applications. And I think crypto provides payment rails for any kind of compute. But AI would be one of the use cases there. So I think there's a lot of intersection. There's a lot of ways that the crypto community can work with AI. Unfortunately, right now, the leaders of AI are largely centralized, and I mean, Sam Altman from OpenAI has his own crypto project, WorldCoin, where you scan your eyeballs, and it's a little bit dystopian. Yes. But there are, yeah. So there's potential for us to potentially work with like OpenAI, but particularly as it relates to open source models, I think providing trust assumptions around those AI models using cryptography and using something like staking or some other mechanism that would lend trust to those models would be probably the most obvious intersection.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Andrew. Look, as we finish off this part of the podcast, then just to tell people where they can go to learn more about what you guys are building with Versatus. And again, just make the case, I guess, especially for developers, any developers who might be listening, whet their appetite as to why they should come and check out what you guys are doing and potentially look to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So the best place to follow us is on Twitter. It's at Versatus Labs, Versatus Labs. Our website is versatus.io, versatus.io. And we also have a Telegram group and a Discord channel that you can find from our website. Our GitHub's completely open source, so you can check that out as well. Has been from day one. We're big believers in open source and community involvement. So whether you want to help participate and help us build out our protocol and our compute stack, or whether you want to build on top of it, those are probably the best places to go. You always feel free to reach out to me directly. My email is as@versatus.io. Happy to take those emails. Sometimes I don't get to them all, but I try to. Particularly if you're a developer, we'll get back to you, I promise. If you're a developer and you're tired of chewing glass on top of other chains, we offer you the flexibility and versatility you're looking for. We make developing on Web3 easy, flexible, and make it possible for you to build in languages you're already familiar with or more experienced in. We don't want developers to have to go back to school in order to build in Web3. We don't want them to have to go through boot camps. We think that hackathons are a poor model for onboarding new developers. You have to bring your own idea. You have to learn something really, really quickly and then try to hack it together. And oftentimes you're not going to have a production ready product at the end of a hackathon, especially if it's only 2 or 3 days. So we want to provide you the space and time to actually build as opposed to just trying to rush you to deployment and enable you to do so with skills that you already have. And basically, if you're a Web2 developer that's writing code in Python or JavaScript or TypeScript or Go or C or C++, you can build it on our stack today. So we're releasing our beta at the end of October. So sign up now and be part of our beta. There will be some additional benefits to being a beta developer within our network. So we'd love to have you come on and learn a little bit about what we're doing and give us feedback. The first version isn't going to be perfect. We need developers to use it and try it out and tell us what they like and what they don't like. And as a result of doing that, you will get some benefits from that. So that would be my pitch for why you should join us now, even though we're very, very early.
Fantastic. Thank you, Andrew. And of course, links will be in the show notes, listeners, to the websites and Twitter profiles there. I reckon we go to a very quick break and then we'll come back. We'll finish off. We'll have some fun. We'll run Andrew through the very famous Crypto Conversation hot take round. Back in one moment.
Look, we'd all like to say we're pro traders, but the reality is we're probably not. But with BitGet, you don't have to be. Why? Because BitGet is the world's largest copy trading exchange. Instead of you muddling through it on your own, feel confident. BitGet allows you to automatically copy trade from over 80,000 elite traders with 24/7 support on our secure copy trading platform. Start following expert traders on bitget.com. Check for details in the show notes and join BitGet today.
And we are back, and I'm with Andrew Smith, founder of Versatus Labs. Building out some developer tooling to bring in the next wave of developers to ignite the Cambrian explosion and build out Web3. Andrew, I like to finish each podcast with a quick round of rapid fire crypto conversation hot takes. Are you up for it?
I'm absolutely up for it. I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome, Andrew. Me too. I'm just going to run some questions at you. So just want you kind of quick, rapid fire, hot take style answers. Question 1 for you, bit of a funny one. I think we'll know what you say, but where would you say, Andrew, that you sit on the Bitcoin maximalist to multi-chain opportunist spectrum?
I'm a decentralization maxi. So any chain that's decentralized and pushes that forward, I'm a fan of, including Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin obviously has some issues that the maxis don't want to point out, but yeah, that's where I sit. I'm a decentralization maxi.
I like it. Makes sense. All right. Well, what would you say, Andrew, is your firmest conviction crypto opinion?
Ooh, that's a good one. That we need more developers building in Web3. I think that's number one.
Yep. Yep, like it. Okay. Look, Andrew, Bill Gates famously said that we tend to overestimate what we can accomplish in 2 years and underestimate what we can accomplish in 10. As a developer, as a builder, you'll be pretty familiar with that concept, I guess. But, 10 years' time, anything you like, I guess Web3, blockchain, 10 years' time, what does it start to look like, do you think?
So I think in 10 years' time, we have multiple killer apps. There's probably a bare minimum of about 100 million daily active users of Web3 technologies. I think a large portion of them won't even realize they're interacting with the blockchain. A lot of that will be abstracted away from them. And I think that we have multiple platforms that compete in terms of market cap with some of the largest companies in the world. So $1 trillion plus, multiple $1 trillion plus, whether they're chains or protocols, or whether they're compute stacks like ours. I think that's where we'll be. There'll be over 100 million daily active users, and we'll have multiple $1 trillion plus market cap coins.
Yeah, I like it. Makes sense to me. All right. Well, William Gibson, Andrew, said that the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. With that in mind, can you think of an example of the future being here right now, but most people aren't aware of it?
I think we live it every day, right? I think crypto is the future. Decentralization is the future. And there's only probably, I don't know, maybe 100,000 people that are actively on chain on a daily basis. I think that's going to change pretty rapidly, and when it starts to happen, it'll happen really, really fast. Some of that needs to be, again, abstracted away from the user, but I think that's probably the biggest unevenly distributed knowledge right now is as it relates to blockchain. If you go out and tell somebody about Ethereum, they're going to say, was that kind of like Bitcoin, right? And that's the second biggest one in the world. So there's still a huge knowledge gap when it comes to this technology.
Yeah. All right. I'm sure you think about this stuff night and day, Andrew, but speaking of night, what keeps you up at night? Any worries in the back of your brain?
I mean, I'm not much of a sleeper to begin with, so I'm up late working usually, but it's not as a result of like any fears. I'd say that the biggest thing that keeps me up at night is just, it's a really tough market right now, and making sure that we have the resources to see through our vision is something that I think about quite a bit. And how do I do that? How do I make sure my team has the resources they need? Other than that, there's not really like the tech. We're very confident in what we're building and know that we will get there. Just matter of will we have enough time to get there. So that would probably be the biggest thing that keeps me up at night.
And finally, Andrew, what is your favorite science fiction book, film, or TV show?
Oh man, that's a really tough one. I mean, I'm gonna go with the first 3/4 of Snow Crash. I think that the last 75% of it, the last 25% of it is meh. And I think it could be a much better ending, but the first 3/4 of it is really fun. It's a fun read. I think it would be a really, really fun series or movie, or series of movies. So I'm going to go with that.
Yeah, nice. Snow Crash, of course, by Neil Stephenson.
Yeah.
And famously introduced the idea of the metaverse.
The metaverse, yep.
You're right. It's like considering, we have, film or TV adaptations of everything from Dune to Foundation. I know there's one coming from the Game of Thrones producers on the Chinese trilogy, The Three Body Problem, which will be incredible. So it's kind of surprising that no one's done Snow Crash. I mean, there's Ready Player One, which is kind of Snow Crash adjacent, but nothing specific on Snow Crash as yet.
Yeah, I would love to see it. I'd love to see it. I think you could do a really good job with it. But you got to change the ending. The ending is just not great.
Yeah. Hey, look, this has been a lot of fun. I really enjoyed talking to you today, Andrew. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your perspectives, your thoughts, and your vision for Versatus. Again, just close it out by telling people, again, where they should go to learn more and engage with what you guys are doing. Yeah, absolutely. So Twitter, it's probably the best place. Versatus Labs,
Versatus Labs. I'm on Twitter as well. You can find me through Versatus Labs as well. But I'm VSTS founder. Versatus.io, Versatus.io is our website. And from there, you can find links to all our socials, Medium, Telegram, Discord, as well as our Twitter. So that's always a good place to start. And then, yeah, just jump in our community, particularly if you're a developer. We would love to have you mess around and build something on our beta. It'd be really, really valuable to get your feedback and make sure that we're headed in the right direction for you. Our goal is to be the platform that developers come to first when they want to build something in Web3 and to onboard a lot more developers. So if you're a Web2 developer or a Web3 developer, we want to make your life easier. Please reach out to us. We're happy to have you in our community.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew. All the best, and bye for now.
Thanks, Andy.
All right, there you go. That was Andrew from Versatus. That was fun. I enjoyed that. Thank you for coming on, Andrew. Snow Crash. Been a while since anyone went for Snow Crash for their sci-fi book of choice, but of course, an all-time classic. Yeah, someone needs to do an adaptation though, right? I couldn't agree more. Thank you, Andrew, for pointing that out. All right, well, thanks for listening, team. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave New Coin. See you next time. Bye for now.